Hi, this is Stephanie, and this is lesson 24. So, lesson 24 is a vocabulary lesson, and we're looking at the verb bring. My name's Stephanie. This is level B2 and lesson 24. So, in this lesson, you will practice using phrasal verbs with bring and practice using expressions with bring. So very similar to lesson 22 when we looked at the verb take, bring is another very common verb in the English language. So what we're going to do today is have a look at phrasal verbs that use it and then have a look at some verb-noun collocations, all of which will be very useful for you whether you're studying English for business, for social reasons or for an exam. We're going to start off with some phrasal verbs, and as always, we will look at these in context so that you have a very clear idea what they mean and how they are used. Now, phrasal verbs are a very important part of advancing your English, and whether you're using English actively or whether you're corresponding with native speakers, it's very important to have an understanding of phrasal verbs because we tend to use them a lot. Okay, so let's start with the first slide, and we're going to have a look at 6 sentences. Each sentence uses a different phrasal verb with bring and a preposition. My question to you is, can you think of an alternative? So for each sentence, can you think of a different way of expressing the phrasal verb bring? Let's have a look together. Okay, number 1. I was brought up in the countryside. Number 2. Jamie Oliver is bringing out a new cookbook this year. Number 3, you have to try to bring him round to your point of view. Number 4, this Christmas, lots of toys from the past have been brought back by shops and manufacturers. Number 5, can we bring the meeting forward an hour, please? And number 6, when he brought up the issue of pay, everyone went quiet. So pause the slide and see if you can think of an alternative to the phrasal verb with bring. So for example, number 1, instead of I was brought up in the countryside, I was in the countryside. What alternative verb can you use? So pause the slide and see if you can think of 6 alternatives. How did you do? Okay, well, let's have a look at 6 alternative verbs that I have chosen, but they're not correctly matched. So we'll have a look at the 6 phrasal verbs and the 6 alternative verbs. And what I want you to do is to see if you can correctly connect the phrasal verb with its synonym. Okay, so let's have a look. So our phrasal verbs, we have bring up, bring out, bring round, bring back, bring forward, and bring up. Our alternative verbs, we have reintroduce, raise, children, move to an earlier time, raise an issue, introduce, and persuade. Note the pronunciation, persuade. It's a very unusually spelt word. So see if you can match the phrasal verb from the previous exercise with the synonym. It might be useful to go back and have a look at the previous slide and see if the verb that you've chosen correctly fits in the sentence and makes sense. You will notice that we have 2 phrasal verbs bring up, but they have different meanings. So pause the slide and see if you can correctly match them. Okay, let's have a look then at the answers. So bring up in the first context means raise children. Bring out means introduce. Bring round means persuade. Bring back means reintroduce. Bring forward means move to an earlier time. And bring up the second time means raise an issue. Okay, so really well done if you managed to correctly match those 6 phrasal verbs with their synonyms. So let's look back then at the example sentences and see, and we can compare the phrasal verb and the alternative. Okay, so the first sentence, I was raised in the countryside. Do you remember the phrasal verb? I was brought up in the countryside. Good. Number 2, Jamie Oliver is introducing a new cookbook this year. Or Jamie Oliver is bringing out a new cookbook this year. Number 3, you have to try to persuade him to your point of view. Or you have to try to bring him round to your point of view. Number 4, this Christmas, lots of toys from the past have been reintroduced by shops and manufacturers. Or, this Christmas, lots of toys from the past have been brought back by shops and manufacturers. Number 5, can we move the meeting forward an hour, please? Or, can we bring the meeting forward an hour, please? Good. And number 6, when he raised the issue of pay, everyone went quiet. Or, when he brought up the issue of pay, everyone went quiet. So here you can see it's very, very important to look at the phrasal verbs in context, look at the alternatives in a context in order to correctly use them in the right way. Well done if you managed to get some of those correct. And if you've got all of them correct, that's excellent. Okay, we're going to move on and have a look at another 3 phrasal verbs. So 3 different phrasal verbs that we haven't looked at, always using the verb bring. So I'm going to show you 3 pictures, and what I want you to do is to see if you can write a sentence about the picture using bring and a preposition. So bring and a phrasal verb. Can you guess what phrasal verbs I'm thinking of? Okay, so the first picture, what do you think is happening here? Something is... Picture 2, we have a violent storm. If you looked at the weather lesson, you'll know that's thunder and lightning. And picture 3, we seem to have a group, a family gathering, people together. What do you think could be being described here? So pause the slide and see if you can write me 3 sentences using a phrasal verb bring and a preposition. Okay, so that's quite challenging because I haven't given you any clues at all. I've asked you, what do you think? So quite a challenging exercise. Let's have a look at the 3 phrasal verbs that I was thinking of. So picture 1, I was thinking of bring down. Picture 2, bring about. And picture 3, bring along. As always, we're going to look at some examples of these in context. Let's start with bring down. Okay. The government promised to bring down taxes if they are elected. The abundance of oil has brought down the price of petrol. The apprentice scheme has brought down the number of unemployed. So have a look at these examples. How do you understand the phrasal verb bring down? Bring down taxes, bring down price, bring down the number. What do you think it means? Okay, so the arrow was a big clue. It means reduce or lower. To bring something down in this context means to reduce or lower. Well done. Okay, our second phrasal verb was bring about. Let's look at some examples. The unusual weather conditions has brought about severe storms in the area. The corruption brought about the firm's bankruptcy. The new head teacher has brought about many changes. So again, look at these examples. How do you understand the phrasal verb being used? Can you think of an alternative? What do you think bring about means? Okay, so you will hopefully have noticed that we have a cause and an effect, and bring about really means cause to happen. So in our first example, the weather conditions cause severe storms. The corruption causes the bankruptcy, and the head teacher causes the changes. So bring about in this context means make happen, cause. Good. And our third phrasal verb was bring along. Let's look at some examples. They brought along the whole family for the trip. The invitation said I could bring along an extra guest. The CEO decided to bring along the finance director to speak at the meeting. So any ideas here? What do you think bring along means? Bring along the family, bring along a guest, bring along the finance director. Okay, so in this context, it's quite difficult to think of an alternative to bring along, but the meaning is come to, accompany. They brought along the whole family came to. They said I could bring an extra guest. The invitation said an extra guest could accompany me. So this is the phrasal verb bring along. Okay, so the second part of the lesson, we're going to have a look at some expressions with bring and a noun. So our first task is to have a look at 12 nouns. And my question to you is, which of these nouns can I use with the verb bring? So, peace, comfort, action, disruption, charges, acclaim, relief, a smile to your face, happiness, changes, tears to your eyes, and news. So 12 nouns, but how many can I use with the verb bring? Pause the slide and see if you can decide. Okay, how many did you choose? Well, let's check our answers together. So the correct answer is all of them. All of these nouns can be collocated with the verb bring. Bring peace, bring comfort, bring action, bring disruption, bring charges, bring acclaim, bring relief, bring a smile to your face, bring happiness, bring changes, bring tears to your eyes, and bring news. Remember, if you're not sure of any of the vocabulary, please look it up in a dictionary. The act of looking up and checking new vocabulary is another way of helping you to remember it. So our next exercise, I'm going to show you 5 sentences and 5 missing nouns. The verb is always bring, but what are the missing nouns? Can you complete the sentences? All the nouns are the ones we've looked at on the previous slide. Can you complete the sentences? Number 1. The bad weather brought widespread to the rail network. Sorry, let me read that one again. The bad weather brought widespread to the rail network. Number 2. The strike action brought about to the pension scheme. Number 3. The film was really emotional and brought to my eyes. Number 4. The arrival of a new baby brings great to a family. Number 5. The police had no choice but to bring against the accused. So pause the slide, have a look back at the previous slide. We had our 12 nouns, but which noun correctly completes the sentence? Okay, did you manage to select 5 nouns? I nearly gave the answer away to the first one, but let's see if you managed to do it yourself. So let's check our answers. Number 1. The bad weather brought widespread disruption to the rail network. Number 2. The strike action brought about changes to the pension scheme. And here you'll notice the verb bring about that we looked at earlier, cause to happen. Number 3. The film was really emotional and brought tears to my eyes. Number 4. The arrival of a new baby brings great happiness to a family. And number 5. The police had no choice but to bring charges against the accused. Really well done if you managed to get all 5 correct there. So as you can see so far, we've looked at lots of different ways of using phrasal verbs with bring and verb-noun collocations with bring. It really is a very useful verb to be able to use correctly. Okay, in the last slide for this lesson, we're going to have a look at 7 questions using the verb bring, of course, but this time I'm asking you. So, as with lesson 22, if you would like to write your answers to these questions and send them to us at Perfectly Spoken, we will check them for you and give you some feedback on your answers. That's a really good opportunity to practice your English and get some feedback. But when you are writing your answers, please try to use the verb bring, because that's what we're practicing in this lesson. So let's have a look to start with at the 7 questions that I'm going to ask you. Number 1, where were you brought up? Number 2, do you find it easy to bring up difficult topics in a meeting? Number 3, does your government promise to bring down taxes in order to be elected? Number 4, how do you feel if a meeting is unexpectedly brought forward? Number 5, what techniques do you use to bring someone round to your point of view? Number 6, do famous people in your country often bring out merchandise? And number 7, do you think it would be a good idea to bring back traditions from the past? So 7 uses that we have looked at in this lesson of the verb bring. Number 1, where were you brought up? Where were you raised? Number 2 uses bring up, but remember in a different context, meaning to raise an issue. Do you find it easy to raise, to bring up a difficult topic, a difficult issue in a meeting? Number 3, does your government promise to bring down? Remember, meaning lower taxes. Number 4, bring forward. Remember, how do you feel if the meeting is moved forward? So maybe you're expecting the meeting to happen at 1 and your boss says, no, the meeting is happening at 9. How do you feel? Number 5, to bring someone round. What techniques do you use to persuade someone? Number 6, do famous people in your country often bring out, introduce merchandise? Think about perhaps celebrities, actors, sports stars. Do they often bring out their own makeup range, clothing range, perfumes? And number 7, do you think it's a good idea to bring back, to reintroduce traditions from the past. So 7 really interesting questions there. And as I said, if you'd like to get some feedback, please write your answers and email them to us at Perfectly Spoken. In the subject box, if you put level B2 lesson 24, that would be really helpful. Okay, so thank you very much for watching lesson 24. Remember, there is a test that you can try at the end of this, and lesson 25 will be a review. So lesson 25, we're going to look back at the previous lessons and give you more opportunity to practice what we have studied, what we have learned together. So thank you very much for watching, and I really hope to see you soon. Have a good day. Thank you.